Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jacque and this is Jacque is Making, a place where I talk all about the knit garments, accessories, and sometimes quilts that I am making. Today I'm finally back with a podcast episode. I had a couple of episodes in between where I talked all about my winter making plans and then I went through everything I made in 2024. But now I'm back and I couldn't be more thrilled to just get a jump start on all of my January knits. I don't know if it's the cold weather or what's going on, but I haven't been this excited to knit in a really long time. Granted, it is -14 out today in Wisconsin with a real feel of -23. So if there was ever a time to love wool and to love knitting, it would be right now. To get started off today, I do have one finished object, and that is the Bibliophile 3 sweater that I made for my husband. It was his birthday present I made for him this year, and I finished it earlier in January, and he hasn't stopped wearing it. He wore it twice to work last week. He's literally wearing it to work today, so I don't have it physically here to show you, but I will include a ton of clips of the sweater so you can see it all up close and personal. This was a sweater that was a very, I would say, like your standard run-of-the-mill type of sweater where it was a top-down, in the round, raglan increases, like pretty, I would say a classic fit where it has the 2 to 4 inches of positive ease, and was shaped for a man specifically. So it just ended up working out perfect for him and was exactly what he had looked for. I ended up using Knit Picks palette for this and holding it double. I had heard from some friends that they love Knit Picks palette, and yeah, I kind of love that feeling of holding a fingering weight double. I think it gives a garment a lot of structure versus just using like a DK weight or whatever. You can always do that, but I had heard so many good things about Knit Picks palette, and I bought it during that Black Friday sale. And I'm so happy I did. I picked out 2 of the heathered shades, and these greens just marled together in a really low contrast way that looks very sophisticated, but still super unique, like not really like something you would be able to get in a store. So I was very pleased with the yarn. It is a Peruvian Highland wool, and it's just, again, just staple. Like I feel like this sweater was a staple, this yarn was a staple. Match made in heaven. And yeah, I definitely would use this yarn again. I did not have any qualms with it, no issues. It was easy to use and it looks beautiful. And sometimes that's all we're looking for, right? Is something that's just like gonna get the job done. It's gonna do what you ask it to do, and it's gonna look beautiful at the end. Like there's no bells and whistles to it. It's not anything like ultra fancy, but it gets the job done well, and it's beautiful, honestly. And it's still beautiful. So checked off so many of my boxes, and I can say with certainty when another Knit Picks sale comes around, I will be purchasing from them. I will have the specific colors I used linked down below, and as with anything I ever talk about, I work pretty hard on my description boxes, so be sure to check that out before you leave today. So that was the yarn. The experience of knitting it, seamless. I had no issues. I will say there are different options in the pattern for collars. There's 3 different options. I ended up binding off a little bit too tight, and I did it a little too short. So that is something that I redid. And I brought it up just a little bit more, and now it's perfect for him. I had no issues meeting gauge or with the actual construction of the garment. It was pretty standard. And then, yeah, I think he would ultimately like another inch added to the body. He likes to wear an undershirt with it, so it's usually just peeking out a bit, and I think it would be his preference that it would just fully cover that. And then same with his arms are hitting right at his wrist, and I think he would prefer a tiny bit more. So I'm actually pretty grateful. I bound this one off using Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, and I am erring towards preferring that because of how easy it is to unravel versus a sewn Italian bind off. An Italian bind off, I definitely have to like cut into, makes a mess. I get yarn spaghetti everywhere. But when I do something like a traditional, just yarn over sort of bind off, or this Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, it's so easy to unravel that I'm not as hesitant to go back in and add length. So I think I'll probably do that here in the next couple of weeks. Although I could see myself waiting even longer because he's still wearing it, right? It's still wearable. So it's not as much of a pressing need to add that little bit of length. But I know, just like knowing that it's easier to do is definitely less of a barrier for me, and makes it more likely that it's going to be something that I'm going to fix and make into a perfect garment, which is always my goal. And I'm feeling so much more confident in wanting to do that and having a desire to make items that are more like well thought out and like kind of carry them all the way to the finish line instead of just kind of haphazardly putting them together. And I think for me, more than ever, that's starting to become more of a value of mine, just because I'm seeing these knits stack up, right? Like I just did that 2024 video. I'm seeing them stack up. And as I was talking through them with you all in that video, it was clear to me I wasn't wearing some things just because of construction or the way that it fit. And I don't have an unending closet, right? And even if I did, I wouldn't want to fill it with things that I don't love to wear. So what I'm noticing is it's really becoming more of a thing for me to have it be where if I don't like the object, or if there's something about the object that is bothering me, I'm either going to fix it, or I'm going to frog it, or I'll give it to someone. And I think that's honestly one of my really big goals for 2025, is just to approach my making more in that manner where it's something that is like just more sustainable for me, that I'm going to use this item and love it, or I'm going to do those other things. I'm interested in your perspective on that. If you found that that's something that has kind of developed over your knitting as well, being that now I'm going into my second year of knitting, I'm just finding myself caring a little bit more about that refinement of my pieces. So yeah, that is the Bibliophile 3 sweater. Again, just a staple. If I had to put a word to it, it was a staple. It looks great on him. I'm very pleased with the garment, and the finishes and the refining of it has just been reminding me of my overall 2025 makes. And now moving on to some whips. I actually have 4 knit whips to talk with you all today, and they're really fun. They're really, really fun. So I guess let's do accessory garment. So the first accessory I'm going to talk with you about is actually my very first pair of DK white socks. And I'm knitting this out of a regia yarn that I purchased from Jimmy Bean's Wool. I love looking at some of the yarn sales there because this one I was able to purchase for only $8. So it was a big steal. And then, yeah, I cast on my very first pair of DK weight socks, and they just knit up so fast. I ended up using the Crazy Sock Ladies DK vanilla weight pattern because it's free, and I'm already used to using her pattern for other socks that I do in a fingering weight. So I was familiar with the way she writes patterns, and I went into this thinking I just really want to start making socks that fit me better, for a lot of the reasons that I talked about earlier. And so what's funny is this pattern, the first size is 40 stitches. The second size is 48 stitches. So I first measured my foot and I was at that 48 stitch range. So I cast it on. I was like, no way, this is too big. Cast on at the 40, would not fit over my instep. So I was like, this is no way, I'm not doing this. And so I ended up going in the middle and kind of altering the pattern to a middle size at 44 stitches. And that ended up working out really, really well for me. So again, just working to refine and make sure things actually fit me perfectly so that I wear them. I'm very pleased with the way this sock turned out. It fits really well. It's definitely not as beautiful, I would say, as a fingering weight sock, in that the stitches are bigger. It looks a little bit more rustic, I would say. But just the speed of knitting it has made me want to make a million more. I couldn't believe how fast it went. I knit the whole thing on magic loop. It has a standard slip stitch heel. And yeah, pretty basic here. I will say I am very interested in trying ribbing throughout the whole top of a sock. So even if I am doing a vanilla sock, maybe incorporating some ribbing onto the top of it so that it is just a real snug fit. I'm finding I really like that in socks. I like it to be snug and warm and feel like a hug and not something that's like sloppy. I also think it's like safer. You know, I notice when I wear a couple of my hand knit socks that are a little bit bigger, I'm way more prone to just like slipping around and tripping. So yeah, I like something that has like a real nice snug fit. So that is my very first DK weight sock, and now I'm just on to the second one. The next whip that I have to showcase for you all today is the Rhodes sweater. And it's so funny because the last time that I talked about this, it was in my winter knitting plans. So you all haven't even seen me gauge swatch, you haven't seen me cast on, and you haven't seen me knit it flat, and now I'm in the round. So I have just been cooking on this thing. And it's been so fun. So this is the Rhodes sweater by Ozetta, and I'm knitting this out of Cascade 220 yarn in the shade Silver Spruce Heather. It's my very first time using Cascade 220, and again, similar to the Knit Picks palette, it's a Peruvian Highland wool, and I couldn't be more pleased with just the staple kind of wool feeling that it's giving me. This pattern, I hit gauge on a needle size down. So I was reading some of the project pages on Ravelry before I actually swatched for it, and I noticed that quite a few people had sized down their needle size, and since I tend to be a little bit more of a loose knitter, I was like, you know what, how about in my gauge swatch, I'll just size down and see if I hit it that way. And I did hit that gauge pretty perfectly with a needle size down. So I ended up casting on, and the sweater is so fun because you first kind of start out making these garter ridges that are going to be along the back sides of the shoulder, and then right away you get into some really fun short rows. I've found that I just love working short rows lately. They feel like a little game, you know, where you're just like trying to get to the end, and then you're turning and you're remembering how many you need to do, and it's just back forth. It feels very like teeter-totter to me. But yeah, I finished that out, and then you're just knitting a little bit further down until you get to a certain measurement. And then you are picking up stitches on either side, kind of creating some increases for that neck hole there. And then you're doing a long panel, and once you've hit it, you are in the round. So yeah, I'm so excited that I'm already in the round on this, and I'm kind of cooking. Let's see how much we got here. So it looks like I have about 2 inches here, and what I'm gonna do is continue trying this on until it reaches the desired length. And then I know this pattern has a fair amount of ribbing at the end as well. So we'll be working through that, but yeah, I'm excited about this one. I think for next podcast, I would love to get the collar on here. The collar is a really standout in this piece. It's a mock neck. It's almost a turtleneck, but it doesn't fold. So I think that is then considered a mock neck. And it's just a really beautiful ribbed high mock neck. So I'm really excited to get that on here and see what it looks like. Yeah, I'm loving this color. I'm super excited to wear it, especially with it being so cold out. I feel like I'm just so inspired to finish this and to get to wear it. Speaking of cold weather knits, This is the Berlin scarf, and I am making this out of Lang Cloud yarns. This is a bulky weight blown yarn. It is so soft and beautiful. It's a color changing yarn that works up in like a self striping motif. And if you've never looked at these yarns, you should totally look them up. There are so many different cool color combinations, and on Ravelry, so many people have made them into some gorgeous striped sweaters. But when I was looking at the Berlin scarf, I've always wanted to make this just because I love that it's a gorgeous, just big, chunky scarf. And I actually really wanted to make it out of that Sandnes Garn alpaca that's a little bit fluffy that was used in the pattern photos, but it's a little bit pricey. And so I was looking at other bulky yarns that are out there and just trying to put my own like flair and spin on this project. And when I found this yarn, I was like, yeah, that would be so cool. It actually reminds me of some of the striped sweaters that were popular in the 2000s, except those were like the really skinny scarves. So this is an updated 2025 version, and it's just working up so cool. To get started on this, I didn't gauge swatch, just it's a scarf, but I did try it on, let's see, I tried it first going down a needle size on a US 10. I felt like it was a little bit gapey, so then I went down, cast on a US 8, in which case it was way too tight. And, the logical thing to do would have been at that point to cast on a US 9, 10, 8, okay, maybe 9. But instead, I was looking up this yarn and what needles were recommended for it. And it's actually usually a US 11. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to the 10 and make it work. And so that's what I did, even though I didn't like that fabric in the first place. And actually, you know what? I think I am pleased with this fabric. I think knitting it on this needle size is giving it enough room to bloom. And I actually think I'll be more pleased with this than I had originally thought. So yeah, that's kind of the update on the needle size there. The other funky thing about this is you do a provisional cast on. So I cast this on with a crochet needle onto a different piece of yarn. And you do this so that at the end you can make those little beautiful strands hanging off. I have considered, like if I want this to be a quicker project, I could just like tie the yarn in knots and make some dangling from the bottom, but I at least will attempt the pattern tassels because I do think that they are so beautiful. So yeah, that's it with this. This is like such a fun, easy project just because you after that cast on, you're just in the round forever. And so yeah, it's kind of enjoyable for that reason. It's not the comfiest for me to knit on 6mm needles. So because of that, I would say it's not like my favorite project to work on. I'm a very big hand feel sort of person. It's still a project completely in the round, so I cannot complain. And last, you guys, I have an update on the Tulip Loop vest. And this pattern was so kindly gifted to me by a viewer. Thank you so very much. And the day I got the email that it was gifted to me, I was so excited that I went and swatched for it right away. I used the needle size that was recommended and I did hit gauge. I did, however, notice when you do, for instance, the gauge swatch is in 3 knit, 2 purl. I ended up, my last knit before the purl was a little bit gapey. So I just kept in my mind, okay, be sure to try to tighten up that purl stitch after the knit stitch to try to make the ribbing just look a little bit neater. And it's been going okay. You'll see in a second. But if any of you guys have any suggestions to tighten up that last knit stitch before a purl stitch, I'm all ears. But so this garment in particular is knit out of Rauma Garn's DK weight. It's 100% Norwegian wool, and I'm holding that with a Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the colorway Rainy Day. So this is gonna be just like a total staple cable knit vest. And last night, I was so excited that I cast on that swatch, I quick blocked it, put it under a fan, and once I saw that I had hit gauge, I immediately cast it on. And for this cast on, you're casting on the back panel, and then immediately you're into short rows. And so again, short rows, love them. And I got to finish those out, and now I'm officially ready to start cabling. So that will be the next podcast episode. I guess it goes more like this. But yeah, this is just like so fun so far. I love that the vest has those really wide ribbing sections, and I find that they're really fun to work. And then the cabled sections are like pretty big and wide as well. So I'm excited about kind of the ease of that, but also the way that it looks. I also really love the way this yarn blocked out. I will say I've used rauma garn before. It's definitely a more rustic-y feel yarn, but it just softens really beautiful in a block, and I love the way this feels. So yeah, I'm excited to see how this progresses. And I really wanted my plans to be that I would be working on something stockinette like the road sweater with this cabled vest. And then looking into February, I'm hoping to finish one of these and then cast on the Norma sweater and have that going with Eva cardigan, which will eventually be some stockinette as well. So yeah, I'm excited on all of these. You may have seen too, I ended up getting a pair of needles into a Bucks game the other night, an NBA game. And so I brought something that I just wanted to quick cast on, so that way if I needed to take it off the needles, or if I lost that needle to the garbage, then I wouldn't be that sad about losing progress. So I quick cast on some penny gloves, and I ended up making like 3 inches worth of progress, which is amazing. But I think just as far as prioritization wise, I'm gonna finish out either the pair of socks or the scarf, get that done, and then I'll introduce you guys to those penny gloves and really get them started and finished up. So yeah, that is kind of the sweet and fun update on all of my knits. I have also been making a lot of quilting progress, so I'm thinking I'm gonna make that a separate video so all my quilt lovers can watch that one separately. But that's all I have for knitting today. Stay tuned. I have some really fun things coming up for the rest of this winter. I hope that all of you are staying warm and that you're staying well and you're taking care of yourselves. As always, thank you so much for being here. If you are not subscribed already, please make sure to do so down below so that you never miss a video from me. And other than that, I will see you guys next week with another podcast episode. Bye-bye.